Whether you're just the boy in the Lost Forest, the traveler in the sea, or the warrior tasked with uniting a kingdom, The Legend of Zelda always offers some of the best world building that any game could offer. The inhabitants aren't just your average NPCs, as they truly seem to live their own lives in these fictional settings. This is all enhanced by the consistently iconic soundtrack that goes with each of these games. It's odd to me that arguably one of the most popular and highest reviewed franchises of all time has really never received any attention with film. I say this as we're now seeing the first true Mario movie being released within the next few months. However, this leaves both the question and hope of potentially seeing a Zelda movie. Now, there's a lot of opinions on what it should look like, what the story should be, and so on. But I think there's only one true way that Nintendo can encapsulate the world of Hyrule into a film. And that's by taking the direction of one of the best animated filmmakers of all time, Hayao Miyazaki. For those who don't know who that is, he has made some remarkable movies such as Spirited Away, Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, and Castle in the Sky, which all have some of the best world building I've seen not just in animation, but in filmmaking. However, the movie I'll be focusing on in this video is Princess Mononoke. There's already some clear inspiration in Breath of the Wild that seems to come right from Mononoke. Take a look at the Koroks and the Korok Forest from Breath of the Wild. Now peek at the forest spirits in Princess Mononoke. I can't say for sure whether this is a direct inspiration, but it definitely seems to be present. I'll get into a few more comparisons later on, but something that makes his film so immersive, like Zelda, is the art direction and music. The 2D animation by Studio Ghibli is some of the best around, and every single shot is full of detail. This art style is really the only way I envision Zelda to be if it's ever in a film setting. I don't believe the 3D animation could do justice for the franchise. I do think that it works fantastic for Mario, as the world of the Mushroom Kingdom has always been more vibrant and cuddly than the darker fantasy world of Hyrule. I'm a fan of both styles, however, it's much easier to envision Zelda in this direction than as a 3D animation, which I believe could throw off the aesthetic that is Zelda. Now, the themes of Zelda are usually somewhat similar, as they always have something to do with the balance of nature and power. In Ocarina of Time, you have to rid Ganondorf's presence from the many regions he's basically killed off. In Twilight Princess, you have to free the light spirits to rid the regions of darkness. These same themes are applied in Princess Mononoke, as humans become less tolerant of the wild and begin exploiting it rather than living in harmony with it. This exploitation causes the wild to retaliate, causing this imbalance of the world. Mononoke is definitely more hyper-focused on nature than Zelda is. However, in Breath of the Wild, the malice is basically the extension of Ganondorf's hatred, similar to how the infection in Mononoke is created simply through the hatred and anger of the animals. The original trailer for Breath of the Wild features Link being chased down by an infected guardian, which is strikingly similar to this scene in Mononoke. I believe this theming is something we could also expect in a Zelda movie, but there are so many questions as to how you can take a primarily silent protagonist and make him into a fleshed out character. In my opinion, the answer is simple: don't make Link anything more than he is. He's always fighting for his land and the people around him, just how Ashitaka is pure of heart and is always doing what is right. I think Link in a movie will carry that same mindset with him. He doesn't need to say much, he doesn't need to joke around, he just needs to be what we all know him as. And that's basically just being a symbol for courage and peace. So if you take that core principle for Link and apply the wonderful world building and aesthetic from Miyazaki's movies, I think it could be hard to go wrong. However, I believe the biggest question that remains is on what the story could be. Every Zelda game has its own plot, so it could be hard to pick which one to base it off of, but I can say it should definitely begin how all the games do. Link is just a kid in a small village that is tasked with an adventure that is seemingly out of his league. How Nintendo could go about this, I don't know, but what I do know is that I would assume there would be some dungeons to explore and large monsters to fight. In Zelda, you begin with a simple sword and maybe one item, but by the end of it, you have everything you could imagine. I find that it would be difficult to encapsulate a full journey of Link into a single movie. Just getting to one dungeon could be an entire film in itself, and I, for one, would love to see the progression and character building of Link. Imagine a movie with a plot similar to the Deku Tree. It begins by building the world around the home of Link as he does tasks for those in need. It turns out he's more special than expected and learns of the infection of his home sacred temple. Monsters have invaded it and captured many of the village's people. This would basically play out as the intro and rising action. The second third of the movie would be about his time in this temple. From this point on, it wouldn't really be necessary for him to speak much. However, I would be interested in him having a Navi-like companion for some form of communication. He'd have to face creatures he's never seen before and assess the attack patterns just like you have to do in the game. Not only that, as you can't forget about the puzzle solving. I don't think moving some blocks would be too sufficient in a movie, however, I can see there being plenty of room for opportunity for some booby traps and quick thinking. Halfway through the temple, you could expect he might find some sort of item that he must use throughout the rest of the movie. This kind of direction could actually make it feel similar to the game while remaining entertaining. Zelda games have always been one large journey, broken down into much smaller ones, which is what the dungeons are for. I find it hard to imagine Link saving the world of Hyrule within 2 hours. I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, I just have trouble thinking about how it could be possible. I believe the climax of the movie could end with him defeating a familiar monster, probably some variation of Goma, and then learning of the larger issue that is taking place. And let's not forget about a nice cameo that Ganondorf could have. Just so you all know, this is just my interpretation of how I think a Zelda film could be properly introduced. But I'm sure a lot of you have your own thoughts that I'd love to hear in the comments. To summarize it all, basically, the Zelda movie could take down the aesthetic of a Studio Ghibli film while introducing its own fantastic soundtrack with some familiar tunes. I say this is the only Zelda movie Nintendo needs to make because I believe it's the only direction that can truly capture the world of Hyrule. There's so much lore involved in Zelda that I'm sure we'd all love to see separate stories of the Gorons, the Zora, the Rito, the Gerudo, and all of the details in between. The Zelda IP has the potential to become its own breakthrough film or TV series that would only boost the awareness of the games. However, nothing is more important than remaining true to the franchise. I think I planned this video to be longer than it is, however, I don't want to keep rambling on, so tell me in the comments below what you think a Zelda movie should look like, and if you haven't seen Princess Mononoke yourself, then I highly recommend watching it so you can understand the comparisons that I'm making. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear some recommendations on other topics I could cover in the future, so until next time.